Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer of this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. Today, we have a Libra new moon on the notes, which means that it's a Libra solar eclipse. Before I jump into your forecast for this eclipse, a couple of things. One is I have my Libra birthday special going on. So what that means is until the 20th of this month, October, if you are a Libra, you can book a session with me. It is 90 minutes on Zoom where we go over your natal chart, all the questions that you have. I'm an evolutionary astrologer, if you didn't know. And that means that we're looking at why are you here? What is your what are your karmic dynamics? What is your soul's evolutionary intention in this lifetime? What are the things that keep coming back up that you're like, why is this happening? I love uh, being an evolutionary astrologer. I feel like it gets down to someone's bottom line, and it really is healing for answering questions about different dynamics that each one of us tend to repeat. And it gives us, it's like clearing a pathway. It helps us understand what direction we're meant to go on. And then it's up for us to have that choice of, do I want to continue to keep doing this, or do I want to do something different? So if you're Libra, you can book that. It's $75. We'll also go over your solar return chart. For other people who want a session with me, I do have a eclipse special that I'm closing out on Friday. If you want to book that appointment, it is, I think it's $80 or $90 for an hour. And we look at what the eclipses are meaning for you, or if you want to look at just one or both. And it's a really good way to understand what these energies are reflecting and what could be coming up for you the next 6 months. Eclipses are a 6-month energy. Most potent in those 2 weeks of the eclipses, but the energies last for 6 months, and it shows us what are the things that we're karmically trying to end and what are the things that we're trying to birth. So there's that. Also, Friday, I'm giving my lecture for the EA online conference through the JWG Association of Evolutionary Astrology. My lecture is going to be over the asteroid Cassandra. I'm really excited to present this. I'm really excited to talk about and teach what this asteroid reflects in natal charts, what it reflects for the collective right now as well. I did a video with Michelle Dench that I'll post where we really went over Cassandra through Capricorn, where she's at right now. So I will post that in the description if you want to check that out. I will also post links to sign up for the online conference. You have 2 days left to do that. And it is 15 lectures, 2 hours apiece. That is over 30 hours of lectures through the lens of evolutionary astrology. The topics are things that really don't get talked about often. And if you want to use the coupon code Jordyn10, you can receive 10% off of the full conference pass. It's very affordable. It'll be 10% off of like just shy of $250, I want to say. So that's really inexpensive for a conference, in my humble opinion, especially 30 hours worth of lectures. So there's that. You can also buy individual lectures on the JWG Association website, and I will post a link with the coupon code and also the website to where you can figure out if you want to do that or not. So without further ado, let's talk about this eclipse that's happening today. This is a Libra solar eclipse. So there's a couple of things that I want to mention before I pull up the chart and show you guys some of the things that I'm looking at. The first one is Libra as an archetype. So Libra as an archetype is where we're trying to find balance. If you have a planet in your seventh house, which is a natural Libra house, if you have a planet or planets in Libra, you are going to know that whatever that planet is going to be a place in your life where you are having to learn about the extremes that play out within that dynamic. Um, so Libra isn't inherently balanced. It's not inherently harmonious. It's like it highlights where we need to learn this. And so there's this misconception, I feel like, in astrology often, that Libra is like, oh, this is a very balanced sign. It's very harmonious. Not so much. Personal experience. If you are new to my channel, I love giving personal experiences. I love being able to connect with you guys. You know, yes, I'm an astrologer, but I'm a person. And so, any way I can share with you some of my direct experiences, whether it be with clients, if I've been given permission or I use them anonymously, or also just my own dynamic, I love giving that to you guys because I feel like it's a way to really connect with the human experience and it's not so rigid. So, for me, I have a Libra moon at 29 degrees. Yes, Pluto is squaring right now. Um, but for me, that Libra moon has been where I have had to experience a lot of emotional upheavals, dealing with my inner relationship to self through uh, it being not instigated, but having relationships with others, Libra, that have highlighted or triggered for me to have an awareness of some type of extreme going on inside of me on an emotional level. Meaning, I'm someone who has had to deal with lots of Libra things like codependencies or not being able to say no to people or not listening to myself and only listening to others and giving my authority over. Sometimes it can be oversharing, right? Maybe I'm doing that now. I don't know. Um, but it's kind of all of these dynamics that I've had happen in my life. Dealing with these extremes of really, for me, self-abandonment and giving away my authority, which I'm happy to say I don't really do that anymore. So there's been lots of Libra lessons for me. I have a friend who has Venus in the seventh house. And for her relationships dealing with the other dynamics in her chart have been where, especially because she has Venus and Pisces, has been where she's really experienced disillusionment in her relationships that have highlighted the extreme of not confronting the truth of who someone has actually been, right? Feeling duped by someone because you want to believe the best in them, which is very Piscean, very Pollyanna, as I like to say. So there's tons of ways that this can come up that will highlight different dynamics. So Libra, the other dynamic about it is this is not just romantic relationships. This is our relationship with anything. It can be work, it can be family. I've talked about this. It can be our spiritual relationship. It can be also where we've self-abandoned and haven't really had a relationship with ourselves. It can be our relationship with our animals. I don't know if you can see my dog's little feet right there. It can be our relationship with our society, with our community. It can be our relationship with friends. I might have already said that. It can be our relationship with food. It can be our relationship with whether or not we're having experiences with addictions. It's because it can pull in this natural yod of Pisces, Libra, and Taurus. So this chart for this lunation, this eclipse, is highlighting a lot of this. And here's the thing. I'm going to put my piece of paper up. Here's the thing. Over the last few months, over a year, really, um, the nodes are in an 18-month cycle. The nodes are about to switch into Virgo and Pisces on January 12th of 2025. So we don't have that much longer of these nodes in Libra, South Node, North Node, Aries. But when the nodes shift, it's an 18-month culmination of where we've been working on these dynamics of the past meeting and confronting the present and what we should be doing. So the South Node of Libra has brought up a lot for people. I have never seen so many people in my life in relationships because they're realizing that on a Libra level that this person can't hear me. They can't understand me. They don't listen to what I'm needing. Therefore, as I give and I give, I'm not able to receive because this person doesn't hear me. This is something that I've seen a lot. And what that's done, and I've seen this in the workplace, it's not just like one-on-one. I've seen it in relationships of all kinds. What this does is it's teaching us about where these extremes have played out in our life, where we might have given and given and given, and now we have nothing left to give, and we have to do Taurus and really focus on our inner relationship to self. I've seen a lot of people who are now coming to the understanding and have been for, either a year or the past few months that they really just feel like they need to be by themselves to reconnect with themselves because they've done too much of the Libra. They've done too much of being around, socializing, filling up their time with helping other people and realizing, oh man, I haven't really been helping myself, right? So I've seen this play out so much. Another way that this is played out that I want to talk about as we get into this eclipse, because this is very important, and I hope it's validating for some of you all, is this dynamic of codependency. I think that it is a hot button word, but a lot of people don't understand exactly what it is. And I often hear people say that one person's codependent, but they aren't. But there's the word co. It takes two to tango with this dynamic. But codependency essentially is someone who's lacking boundaries, and it can be in a plethora of ways. And when they lack boundaries, it means that imbalances occur within relational situations. So one of the ways that I've seen this play out recently is whenever someone is giving and giving in a friendship or some type of relationship, but they're not really able to communicate what they need. And so they become resentful because they don't know how to communicate. And also, they might have a lack of value in themselves. And so, as a way to overcompensate for that and not deal with it, they will give and they will give and they will give and they will give and they will give. Right? I'll do this for you, I'll do that. But these always have some underlying string attached to them, meaning that this person has a projected expectation. That is Libra. A projected expectation that isn't spoken. And so the resentment builds up, and then a conversation happens, and all of a sudden, this person who's been receiving these things has no idea that this person over here is really angry at them. And it's because the person that's angry is lacking the ability to ask for what they need. And you see this oftentimes with Taurus dynamics as well, because that person doesn't actually know what they need within Libra relationships. And so they need to reconnect with themselves, Taurus, their own inner relationship to self. That way they can go out and they can be able to ask and express what they need without having stealth expectations, is what me and my friend call this. A stealth expectation is an expectation that's unspoken, right? That you're just expecting someone to read your mind and understand. And all of a sudden, a blow up happens and maybe judgments are projected onto that person. Maybe all of a sudden the inner content that's going on inside the person who's giving and giving it's distorted. And so now they're projecting it all onto the other person. This is something I have seen so much of lately in my practice. And also, again, as a Libra moon gal, I have definitely experienced this. So the key is with all of this is to be able to understand oneself so that way one can ask for what it is that they need. Yes, to be self-reliant and self-sufficient, but in relationships, we all have needs. I need to be in relationships where people have the ability to hear where I'm coming from, even if they don't agree. That's a healthy need. I need in relationships someone who wants to really grow and doesn't want to just sit in their own status quo. That's one of my relational needs. So this is a time where we have been needing to understand what it is that we need in order to ask for it. The dynamic here is with Libra and the cardinal crosses. Sometimes when we voice what we need, and have a healthy boundary, that other person isn't ready to hear it. And so there becomes this Libra lesson of that's really, that person can do what they want with that information. But from that feedback, I've talked about this before, from that feedback that we receive from that person, then we have to make a choice. So let's say that I have a boundary around expressing, you know, time. I don't want someone to tell me that they're going to do something and then they don't. And of course things can come up. But it's like if someone is not able to hear that and all of a sudden they go down a Rolodex of all of these things of that have nothing to do with that, you know that you're in a Libra imbalance. And that also doesn't mean that you have to be the container that holds their discomfort. Maintaining a healthy boundary is not taking that person's reaction personally. If you have healthy Taurus self-esteem, you're not going to take that reaction personally. If that person is a healthy person, they're going to be able to hear where you're coming from. They're going to be able to have a conversation about it that's not defensive or defiant or deflecting. Um, they are going to be able to apologize, or maybe they don't feel like they need to, but they will be able to have a common discourse with you without pulling in things from the ether to project onto you. That can be this kind of Libra phenomenon. I think a lot of us have been understanding these dynamics and how they've played out in our relationships. Again, Libra is projected expectations. It's the ability to ask for what you need. It's the ability to receive it. It's the ability to discern who to share with, who not to, who's safe, who's not safe, that can listen. So discerning whether or not someone is trying to suppress or your voice or be dismissive of it. There have been lessons in understanding to not take things personal whenever you do voice a boundary, that's just, that presents you with an opportunity to make a choice. It can confront you with the truth about the relational dynamic. There's so many ways that this could be and has been playing out for a lot of people. It's highlighting all of these imbalances, or if imbalances have been happening. And then the other dynamic I want to talk about is that North Node in Aries has been facilitating this process of keeping our individuality intact, our autonomy. Are you getting swept up in doing everything for everyone else because that's where you're getting your value? Or are you able to make correct choices for yourself and correct action from the feedback that you receive from your action that you take? Are you able to stay whole unto yourself? Do you take what other people say personally? And does that create a dynamic where all of a sudden you want to fawn or you freeze, flight, all of that? You know, a lot of this has been coming up since last summer, in 2023. So I just wanted to kind of give this foundation of a recap of the things that one could have been dealing with. Now, when we get to this eclipse and we're talking about it being a Libra new moon, it's also in a new phase to that south node. So all of this crap has been unearthed for us that has highlighted where extremes or imbalances or, disharmony has happened with our one-on-one relationships. And it's given us an opportunity to really teach us. That's what all of this is about. It's about teaching us. That way we can connect with ourselves, like, is this what I want? Or how would I handle this situation? And also, who do I want to be around me? Who respects me? Am I respecting myself? Am I being my own authority? Am I able to inwardly nurture myself whenever someone doesn't have the ability to hear me or listen to where I'm coming from? It's all of this. So now that this solar eclipse is happening and it's in a new phase to the south node, it's really taking all of this information that we have learned during this time and applying it in a brand new way. So that way we can cultivate more balance and harmony in our lives, balance with our relationship to self and balance with relationship to other. Those are the Libra scales, myself and others. So I really challenge each one of us to ask ourselves if we're able to maintain our own sense of authority, self-dignity, self-respect, integrity, ethics, values, self-esteem as we continue to have some type of confrontations as tests to see, have you really changed? How would you handle this situation that's coming back around in a new way? What would you do? What have you learned? What are the lessons that you've taken since last year in 2023 when the nodes switched into these signs? And how are you going to apply that information now as a way to remain whole unto yourself, to remain autonomous, while also being able to have meaningful, authentic, and vulnerable, intimate relationships with others without sacrificing self, without sacrificing self-esteem, self-worth, values, ethics, all of that. This is what could be coming up. So let me share this chart to also speak to a couple of other things. So, as I said, here is a solar eclipse happens whenever it's a new moon. Here's the new moon in Libra at 10 degrees, and it's in what we call a new phase to the south node. So again, just to reiterate, this is taking all of this information that we have been learning for many months, for over a year, and applying it in a new way. The other thing that I want to say is this is restated because Mercury, the messenger, all things information, is in Libra as well, conjunct this new moon, but it's falling in the 6th house. All of this is ruled by Venus and Scorpio. So let's start with this Mercury in a new phase as well to the new moon solar eclipse. I'm going to stop this and then I'll bring it back up because I like for you guys to see me. And if you were on this, like if I could see you, I would be wanting to see you. So that Mercury in a new phase to this solar eclipse, which is a new moon, that's also in a new phase to that south node. Let's break this down just a little bit further. this new moon is happening not just in the sign of Libra, but in the 5th house of that chart. So it's really about self-actualizing on a soul level in a creative way that's brand new, dealing with our one-on-one relationships. And then that Mercury conjunction that's in a new phase is falling in the 6th house, and it's also in Libra, conjunct the solar eclipse. And that is speaking to the information that we have received since last year. And even further, I will get into that. But the concentration of what we've really been learning since last summer in 2023 is now meant to be used for self-improvement and improvement in our one-on-one relationships. That's the function of the 6th house and Virgo energy. It's about improvement. Virgo is also conditioning this solar eclipse because that solar eclipse is happening in the 5th house. And Virgo is on that 5th house cusp, ruled by that Mercury in the 6th house. So it's this repeating signature of self-actualization through applying the information in a new way that helps us to self-improve not only on ourselves, but also with our relationships to others as a way to purge prior dynamics that have perpetuated the imbalances. And then that brings me to Venus in Scorpio in that 6th house as well. Continuing to get to the bottom of Scorpio, our own inner psychological and emotional dynamics, meaning that there needs to continue to have self-improvement in our relationship to self. I'm going to show this to you as well really quick and then break it down. So Venus in the 6th house in Scorpio, ruling all of this. It's also ruling Uranus retrograde, but it's also ruling the ascendant of this chart in Taurus. And then Venus is ruled by Pluto retrograde in the 10th in Capricorn. Okay, so you guys got that? Now I'm going to share a little bit about this. So Venus and Scorpio again. Scorpio, I said this in my video last week, and I talked a little bit about this in the Pisces lunar eclipse, but we have been in this rapid wrapping up dynamic, okay? And Venus in Scorpio likes to confront us with where we have maybe over-identified with something that feels really known and familiar and secure, but really is getting in the way of our own growth. And then you put that in place with the relational dynamics of this solar eclipse in Libra. It's really about getting to the bottom of, why do I do the things that I do in my relationships? Where does that come from? Is this really fostering healthy self-esteem and autonomy? So it can be confronting us with our own hidden motivations behind things, our own manipulations, which I think manipulations has such like an icky connotation with it. Here's the thing is, manipulation is a form of survival, and a lot of us have structured our lives through the survival mechanism, depending on our own conditioning, where we've grown up. Have we had to manipulate certain dynamics in our lives in order to survive? Now it's about, I want to bring equilibrium, balance, and harmony to these other places in my life. And so I have to be very honest with myself about why I do the things that I do. And I think over the last year, a lot of people have been confronting this within themselves. And that Venus in the 6th house is really about improving upon this function of really purging those old dynamics. So it's understanding, I have a friend that they constantly hop from relationship to relationship, and there's a hidden motivation. in that. And it's because they don't know how to be by themselves. This is Libra Taurus. And so they will cling on to anyone, and they are aware of this. They've been talking to me about this recently, how it's been within the last couple of weeks that they've confronted themselves with this in true Venus and Scorpio fashion, dealing with this and this, eclipse portal. But they have really had to recognize that some of the behaviors that they've done are manipulative, or they have a hidden motivation or agenda by being around or starting relationships with other people. And that simply is, as a bottom line, I'm afraid to be by myself. So therefore, I'm using other people so I don't have to feel that. That can be a hidden motivation or manipulation, and one not being aware of it, not thinking that it could be manipulative, but really it is. So there's all ways that this can come up, and that Venus in Scorpio is really asking for us to purge a lot of that content and improve by getting to the bottom of the why. Why do I do this? And with Venus ruling Uranus and Taurus, it helps us to liberate and jettison those dynamics from within so we can continue to have that inner transformation of our relationship to self. It's also with Taurus on the ascendant of that chart about starting a brand new evolutionary cycle in how we relate to self and to others. And that's also reflected by the new moon in a new phase conjunction to that south node, and also Mercury in a new phase conjunction. So there's a lot of new energy that's happening. And it doesn't mean that it's the first time that we're starting it. It means that we've just peeled a layer of the onion back, and now we're putting what we found in that other layer into this in a brand new way to have more of a deeper excavation, to start another cycle of how do I work with this energy? How do I use this for self-improvement on my inner relationship to self? How do I utilize this in a way that's beneficial in my other relationships, that really cultivates harmony and healthiness and healing? And then this gets me to, I will share this with you all now. This gets me to Venus's ruler is Saturn. I mean, not Saturn. It's Pluto in Capricorn retrograde, where it's going to be stationing soon. And I will talk about that more next week, but this is really important for us to understand. Pluto here in this 10th house as a bottom line is about this restructuring dynamic. How do I be my own authority? How do I not give my power, my authority away to other people? How do I make my own choices? How do I make correct judgment? This is about learning this, and we have been learning it. And as we continue to self-improve in this way, it really helps this whole dynamic with all of the new phase energy in this chart. That Taurus on the ascendant, Uranus in the first house, the new phase to the south node with the new moon, and Mercury conjunct that in a new phase as well. How do we take the old structures and metamorphose them into a brand new structure? And I talked about this in the eclipse video. For Pisces, I'll put a link below as well. But how do we do this? How do we close this old structure, this old chapter, and metamorphose it into a new structure? Venus and Scorpio is asking for that. And then we also have Venus in a grand trine that gives us a clue to this, to Saturn, which is Pluto's ruler, to Mars, which is ruled by this new moon. So there is this grand water trine happening. Okay. And so I want to talk about this. That Mars is ruling the North Node. That Mars is in Cancer, ruled by this. This is about applying, it's repeating this signature. It's about applying what we have been learning in a brand new way for a restructuring to occur. That means, have you gotten to the bottom of your emotional insecurities, where you feel secure? Have you been able to nurture yourself? Have you Do you still need to continue to learn more about why you do the things that you do? I'm willing to bet you do. I think that all of us do. The journey is not ever over. Venus is facilitating in this process of helping us get to the bottom of it, so that way we can cultivate new patterns of our emotional dynamics, dealing with ourselves, dealing with others, becoming more inwardly secure, and then applying it to our relationships, Libra, in a way that facilitates non-dependencies. Okay. And Saturn in this dynamic, which is also the ruler of Pluto, is in Pisces retrograde. So it's helping us to transcend these limitations of the past in order for this restructuring to occur, thus creating new structures within our consciousness, dealing with our own emotional dynamics as we get to the bottom of this. And then that goes out into other areas of our life, meaning our Libra relationships. So this is a 6-month cycle that is being initiated right now that confronts us with the actual truth of the things that are going on in the present moment. You could be working on all of these things and have been, but there could be things that slipped through the cracks that, especially with Mercury in this conversation, ruled by that Venus that's trining Saturn, you could be really confronted, Scorpio, with the actual truth, Pisces, of the reality, Saturn, in order to liberate from it. Saturn's in that 11th house. It's also retrograde, meaning that it could be something that you're coming face to face with in order to resolve it. That's also the nature of retrogrades. So there can be a lot of resolution within these dynamics that you've been working so hard on for the next 6 months. Can really help you to understand what needs to continue to be healed and to be improved upon on an inner level, and then also how that creates this ripple effect into other areas of our life. That means I've got to say what I need to say, and I'm not going to take it personal, but I'm going to do it with tact and sincerity and respect. And then that's going to give me an opportunity to see the actual truth of what's occurring. What do I need? Can this person hear me? Is this person able to be honest with me? Does this person have good boundaries? What am I learning from them? What am I learn? What are they learning from me? What am I learning from them? It's all about having this deep emotional and psychological inner confrontation, and confrontation does not have to be bad. If you are consciously working with this, a confrontation is like, oh, there it is. Okay. Now I need to Pluto and Capricorn or Saturn. I need to self-reflect and I need to make a correct judgment about this. That way I'm not continuously repeating patterns in my life that perpetuate habitual imbalances. Okay. So we've been getting a taste of practicing and now it's really putting it into place. And as things come up, they get easier to understand, to deal with, to recognize, to have clarity about, and to continue to make correct judgment on them. Because it's kind of this feeling of I've been here before and now I know what to do to remain in self-love, self-respect, and self-integrity. And a lot of that has to deal with that new moon eclipse being in the 5th house, having self-love and self-dignity in the ways in which you're sincere, authentic, and how you handle situations, right? Because what that does is it pulls in Mars and Cancer. It creates new patterns of emotional dynamics within that really, when I do what it is that I need to do, and I'm able to do it in a sincere and authentic way that's in integrity and alignment with my own values, that helps to cultivate inner emotional validation and it nurtures my soul because I'm having self-love and self-respect. This also brings me to Saturn and Pisces. This is a 29-year cycle. Pluto's at 29 degrees. Pluto is in its last and final hoorah through Capricorn, which it has been there since 2008. And I challenge each one of you to look at, some of you who watch this, you might not have been around for 29 years, but Saturn in Pisces is about really dissolving these old karmic dynamics that have been a 29-year cycle for a lot of people. There's also Pluto and Capricorn that's ruled by that Saturn and Pisces. And I want to challenge you guys to think back to 2008 and what all have you been learning dealing with these cardinal energies that are pulling in the other zodiac as a way to ignite it. How have you been restructuring your life? How have you confronted your own judgments? Where have they stemmed from? Where have you confronted where imbalances have played out in your life? Where you've self-abandoned, or where maybe you were just not wanting to deal with other people and only focusing on yourself, and now you need to have more healthy relationships with other people as a way to give back? Where have you been able to champion for yourself and blaze your own trail? Where have you felt like you had to prove yourself when really the only person you needed to prove yourself to was you? Where were you getting your value from? Was it from others or was it from yourself? There's so much that has gone on since 2008 for us to understand. I want to speak a little bit to the 88 to 93 Pluto and Scorpio generation. You have had an immense amount of transits since 2008. You have had Pluto conjunct that stellium of Uranus, Saturn, Neptune. It could be flipped around in different ways depending on what year you're born in. But this is the final period that I'm done and I'm going to do this in a brand new way. So a lot of us have experienced addiction or wanting to escape the reality that we find ourselves in, or wanting to give our power over to other people, other authorities. A lot of us have experienced massive amounts of traumatic events or witnessed them. We've experienced a lot of, for some of us, religious indoctrination, societal indoctrination. We've experienced an immense amount of crisis or not feeling like we know who ourselves. And this, I'm not going to get into like past life stuff on a generational level. I might do that as a class actually for this. But I just want you all to know that you are culminating so much that if you've been doing this work and you continue to, you are never going to have to deal with it again in this way. Not now, not ever. This generation, I'm speaking because I'm from this generation. I have this in my chart. I have so many friends with this in their chart. There have been a lot of things that all of us have gone on and confronted because we chose to in this lifetime, because we wanted to put it to bed. What perfect way to do that than with a Pluto transit to those three planets? And some of us have more stuff in Capricorn than that, or we could have things in the other cardinal signs that Pluto has transited, but we have that concentrated energy. And I just want you to really, everyone should be reflecting on, especially if it's like your second Saturn return or your first Saturn return, what have you been working on? But for those who have this dynamic of that stellium of Capricorn, I want you, because so often in Capricorn, we forget to look over our shoulder and see how far we've come. And I challenge anyone who has that or who's in their first or second Saturn return, I challenge them to look over their shoulder, metaphorically, and look down the mountain that you have climbed. Think of the things that you have confronted and you have faced, and that you have restructured in your life. And that is your own evolution. And you should feel very proud of yourself for that. I love whenever I get people who come in my through my doors or the interwebs and have sessions with me and are talking about this. I feel an immense amount of compassion, empathy, and a sense of pride in people who are doing this work. And so I just want to say that this eclipse is the last eclipse that we are going to deal with Pluto in Capricorn. And so this is a great time to look at how would you want to end this chapter in order to start a new one? How would you want to see this play out? What is the vision that you have? Where do you see yourself over the next year, 5 years, 10 years? How do you see yourself healing? What needs to still be healed? What do you want to cultivate on a more in-depth level within yourself? This is a new moon eclipse that helps to realign and rebalance through confronting that. And again, so many of us who have lots of Capricorn or cardinal planets right now are really putting to bed some deep karmic shit, for lack of better words. It's a great Scorpio Pluto word. So I just wanted to say this to you all. This is such a great time to work with this energy. I love this eclipse. Ceres is square Mercury as well. It's really helping to nurture and facilitate this restructuring process by having us cultivate actions around where we feel we need to implement the information that we have been learning thus far, and to do it in a way that we can maintain our authority. This can also be where a lot of people might be having conversations right now with people, and they could have these very Piscean. Neptune is approaching that north node. It's on there. It's the ruler of Saturn. Saturn is the ruler of Pluto, where we're really confronted with, hey, I really hope that you're going to change. I really hope that you're going to hear me. And we might be confronted with, this isn't going to happen. Maybe this person is just not where we're at. And so we have to relinquish some type of expectation or control. And then we just have to do Pisces in a beautiful, compassionate, empathetic way and allow that person to be on their own path. That is where we get to acknowledge that this is where this person is at and it's okay. And that's where a lot of healing happens. And that's also where we can surrender and then transcend that. So I wanted to also speak to that. I want to make sure Mars is opposing Ceres as well. Mars is also square to Mercury. So it's this T-square going on where we are needing to take the information that we have come to understand about our old patterns of emotional dynamics and to utilize that to nurture ourselves as a way to continue to metamorphose and create and cultivate a new structure from within that promotes balance and harmony. So there's that. And I'm wanting to see if anything else is on my list. Saturn is in conjunct Mercury. And this can really speak to, do you need to have the conversation? Can you hear where another is coming from? Meaning, what are they saying is the truth for them? What is the reality of the truth? And then what choice are you going to make? How are you going to do it with integrity and honor and respect and self-love and self-dignity? Do you need to relinquish some of your control or your expectations? How can you surrender to where someone's at as a way to promote your own healing? There's a lot that can be coming up right now for people that is really culminating these long-standing dynamics as a way to restructure and metamorphose and to move past old limitations by cultivating new patterns. So I feel like this was a very long video, but I wanted to make sure that I got everything. Jupiter is going to be retrograding soon, so Pluto will be stationing soon as well. And there's a lot of interesting kind of transits that will be happening that kind of give us a little bit of a reprieve, I would say, a little break so we can practice what's being brought to the forefront during this eclipse season. I will be talking about that next week. I just want you to remember that there's a death of something happening within each one of us in order for a rebirth to happen. And I want us to be conscious in how we deal with this and to be gentle as always. So the last thing that I want to leave you all with is there's something that I have found whenever we're looking at Libra imbalances, especially when there's these kind of Virgoan dynamics happening. Remember that Virgo is on that fifth house cusp that this solar eclipse is happening in Libra. And then we've got the ruler of this eclipse and Mercury, which is also conjunct this eclipse, both happening in that sixth house. I always say that Libra teaches us this lesson of like not having an expectation of an outcome whenever we use our voice, whenever we are expressing ourselves, Mercury. And to not take what others say personally whenever we're able to objectify that there might be something going on. Something that I tend to see, and I feel really called to say this to those of you watching this, to leave you with this, because I didn't really touch on Cassandra. Cassandra is in Capricorn right now at the 23 degrees. So ruled by that Saturn, which is in conjunct that Mercury. And it's worth noting that when because Cassandra so much is about recovering our voice, our courage to speak, that helps our inner relationship to self. There's something that I see a lot that's a really big Libra, Pisces, Taurus lesson is that when we say something to someone, just as like a healthy boundary, I need you to respect my time, or that was really hurtful when you said that, or could you give me clarification on what you meant because that wasn't really funny to me. It can go any which way. These conversations that have us kind of feeling scared to say them, whether it be I need to say what I need to say, I need to for my own self-love and self-respect. There's this dynamic of releasing our expectations, but a lot of times if someone hasn't been doing their own work with boundaries and hasn't been able to understand how to ask for what they need, and is someone who holds resentment because maybe they're on the more unnatural side of Libra because they just haven't gotten there yet. Maybe they have like some big Saturn dynamic in their chart dealing with it. I don't know. I've seen this go so many different ways. But what tends to happen whenever you have the courage to say what it is you need to say, that can induce something within that person. If they have a hard time looking at that within themselves, they can feel shame, judgment, or guilt. And that's not your fault. I just want to say that it's not your fault, because so often we start to suppress our voices when we have the courage to say something, and the feedback we receive is the projection of someone's shame, guilt, or judgment because they don't know how to take accountability. And you are not supposed to be the container for that shame, guilt, or judgment. And that's why there's this Libra lesson of being able to observe when someone's doing that and to not be mean about it, right? You can just say that's not what I meant, or I don't know what you're really talking about here, or you're projecting this onto me. You can say that, but it's also this dynamic of not taking it personal. It's like water off a duck's back. When you really understand that some people are just hurting, and whenever you say something for your own healing, it can trigger something in them. It's not your problem if they're not willing to discuss it or hold themselves accountable. And I feel like this is a really big lesson with a lot of people right now. Whether they need to be the ones looking at their own defenses when someone comes to them and has the courage to say, hey, I really appreciate if you did this, or hey, what's the clarification on that? Like, you said this and I don't want to take it the wrong way. They're just really hear where another is coming from and understand that it's not personal. Like, we're humans and we need to express ourselves. And so this eclipse can really give us an opportunity in these areas of saying what we need to say. And also, that's what I mean by the feedback that we receive and our ability to hear where they're coming from. Oftentimes, people's defenses have nothing to do with us. In fact, I would go to say that it rarely has anything to do with us. And so you do not have to hold the position of being the container to hold their guilt, shame, or judgment for whatever reason. And that's part of this Virgo dynamic being pulled into this. And I just wanted to mention that you do not have to be the container for others' emotions. Even if you were the catalyst for that confrontation, if it was met with compassion and sincerity, and you were saying it because you have self-love and self-respect, and you also care about the relationship, because boundaries are actually help with having vulnerability and authentic intimacy and vulnerability. It also shows you who's not capable of that because they haven't met themselves there yet. And so don't take it personal, but it's just a chance and an opportunity for you to make a choice. And so I want to leave you all with that. I hope you all have a beautiful Libra eclipse. And remember, this is about initiating something brand new, and we've been working on it for a while. It's also about remaining autonomous. It's why I put a panther on the graphic. Cats, they can have relationships, but oh boy, do they stay whole unto themselves. They maintain their authenticity and their nature. And so I just wanted to put it out there. All right. I love you all, and I hope to see some of you at the conference. And Libras, come see me. Also, you have 2 days left to book an appointment for this eclipse special. It can be after the eclipses, but it just has to be booked by Friday. All right. I will see you all then.